Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Design Therapy, your creative community outlet for all things creative and finding that artist within. I'm your host, Cassie Patterson, a creative designer and brand strategist right here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I am so excited because on this episode, I have my lovely friend, entrepreneur, dancer, writer, just all around amazing woman. I have Cammy, who I've known for 10 years on the episode with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's been so long. I feel like I haven't seen you in like a year now, a year and a half.
Yeah, I think it has been almost exactly a year and a half because I came back when I was doing stuff with Amax.
I know. I love it. Well, Tell everyone who you are and what you do and share a little bit about your story.
Okay, well, I'm Camilla Curran. I go by Cammy because it's much easier to pronounce. And I'm a ballet dancer currently and teacher. I dance for Tennessee Ballet Theater. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. And I also sometimes model. I was briefly an agent.
Always.
Thanks, love. I was also an agent before, sadly, coronavirus struck and, our economy was changed drastically. So I've had to put that to the side for now, but I do hope to pick it back up soon, God willing.
It's been such crazy times with COVID-19. It's drastically changed all of our schedules and our lives and just trying to find like some kind of semblance of normalcy.
Yeah, and like trying to find joy in the little things since you can't see friends as often and things like that. Like this is helpful, doing Zoom calls or whatever.
Yep. I feel like I've become a Zoom expert.
Yeah, same.
Well, I know that you have, not only are you a ballerina and a teacher, you're also an author. Tell us a little bit about your book that you've written.
Yeah, so I wrote a book called Swings, titled that because I have bipolar 1 disorder. I'm very open about that. I've struggled my whole life with mental health issues, and that's been a huge catalyst in like making me have to work twice as hard for every job I have. But that catalyst also propelled me to need catharsis and need to get my words out. So I wrote this book. I probably started it like toward the end of high school when things really started amping up in my mental health. And then I continued through a failed marriage, through college, and I kept writing and writing. And finally a little book came out and it's called Swings, and it's a book of poetry. And it kind of just documents like the ups and downs that come with any kind of mental illness, mental health issues.
Yeah, I love that. And we'll have a link of that so you can absolutely check out that book for sure. So how do you find your inspiration? Because you're such an entrepreneur. You have so many outlets and facets of creativity in different directions. Where do you find all of your inspiration from?
Well, thank you. And that's a great question. I would say for me, I'm one of those people who finds joy in little things. So like it could be literally one morning I wake up and I notice there's a really pretty bird outside my window and I like the color and I'm like, I'm going to wear that color today. Or silly things that really aren't so silly. They're the small things that keep us joyful and that keep us happy. But I would say for dance specifically, I'm very inspired by my city. Memphis has a lot of soul to it. Like that phrase is so overused, but it's so true.
It's so true. I live in Nashville now for 5 years, and I lived in Memphis for 8, and it's just drastically different because Memphis has such a vibrance of culture and just it's different. And Nashville's great too. It just has a little bit more honky tonk.
Yeah. They're both charming in completely different ways. But like for me, for my dancing and for the modeling I've done, everything's very bright and vivid. And like one of my little catchphrases is my Zen is vibrant.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I hashtag a lot of things with that on Instagram, and it's because it's so true, like of Memphis and of like how I view life. Like my Zen is a vibrant place, even though it's a good, calm, joyful place. It's also very vibrant, very colorful, and I feel like that describes Memphis, and that describes where I find inspiration. So
I love that. So do you do any kind of rituals in the mornings to kind of get yourself in a creative mood? So when you get ready to like, paint or draw or dance or write or anything, what kind of like ritualistic routine do you do to get into that mood?
It's funny. I take it for granted because I've done this for so long, but every morning I wake up and I stretch a little just because I'm a dancer. Like I have to get my body kind of adjusted for the day. But while I'm stretching, I'm going to be honest, meditation is really hard for me because I'm very ADD. That's who I am. But rather than quote, classically meditating, what I do is I focus on my breathing, and I try to think of what I thought the previous day was beautiful, or like a good memory, or things like that while I'm stretching. And sometimes I'll get the most random inspiration from like the dream I had the night before, or maybe
I love that.
or I'll remember like a quirky conversation with a friend, and maybe a poem will come from that.
That's
so
beautiful.
A lot of things come from my stretching routine, actually. And even though it's a really basic way to get started, it doesn't involve a lot of depth maybe, but depth comes from it when I just allow myself to
breathe into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So where did your creative journey start for you? Has it always been something that's been a part of your life? Did it start when you were young and when it was older? For me, it was older. Like I didn't always have that as like I had a little bit, but I didn't really get into it until I was in college.
No, I didn't know that about you, Cassie. That's cool. Because it's funny. It's come and gone. Dance-wise, I'm a third-generation ballet dancer.
So I didn't know that. Oh my God. You're going to have to send pictures of the other two generations because I need to see this.
Yeah,
yep. My evolution of ballerina.
Yes. My grandmother danced for the Oslo Ballet in Norway, and then my mom danced in New York and Chicago her whole life and professionally, and then I dance here, for Tennessee Ballet Theater. And for that, I will say, because I grew up in that realm, I took it for granted for a number of years. I always did it, but it was so routine. I just was like, oh, that's what I do. But then I'd say it was around like 18, and something clicked in my brain, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. And then upon taking a break because of an injury, I went to art school where I was studying illustration. And one of my professors was like, Cammy, every project you do is about dance. And he was like, clearly that's where your heart is. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. So that's where I went specifically, like work-wise. But hobby-wise, I paint, I draw, I write. Like, even though I wrote a book, that I consider a hobby because I'm never going to be wealthy being a poet. Let's just face it. But I love those outlets so much. They're truly, like, I joke about it, but that's what keeps me on a level playing field, like mentally, keeps me healthy. And I've had those things in my life my whole life, but I didn't truly appreciate them until I was an adult, I would say. Yeah.
Do you think that there was a defining moment for your creativity at some point in your life that really like just sticks out to you, saying, this has helped evolve me into the person, into the woman that I am today?
Yeah, it's funny. It was kind of early on. I was 15 years old and was in a really bad car wreck. And interestingly, it took me a couple weeks to be able to get up and be around and walk because I had a really bad concussion. And there was this one night, I grew up in the country where,
me too.
I know, right? It's the best.
We're the country girls.
And the road I lived on it's practically deserted, so you can walk at night and it's perfectly safe. There's no one to bother you except maybe like a stray coyote or something. And I went for a walk in the rain, and the sky was this incredible purple I've never seen before or since. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's totally true. Like, I have never seen that color anywhere before. And it reminded me in that moment where I was just so grateful to be alive after being through such a traumatic car wreck. I was like, I want to give other people the feeling I have right now from seeing that color. I want other people to feel this kind of awe at whether it's visual art or performance art or just creating a moment for people. To me, that's a really powerful spiritual thing. And I remember wanting to recreate that.
That's beautiful. I love that. So what gets you motivated? How do you stay motivated to be creative and to share that moment that you're defining right there, you're explaining for other people?
Yeah, that's a great question because, anyone can get into a rut. And like when you do for your work, when you do for your work something creative and you have a routine, it's really easy to get stuck in that. So for me, I don't know if you've ever heard of this movie, but there's a movie called Center Stage. It's a dance flick from like 90s, 2000s. I forget which year it came out, but anyway, judging from the fashion, it's early 2000s.
I'm going to have to check it out. It's at Center Stage.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. It's not great acting by any means. The dancing is really good, and it's just a fun storyline. But what I do is if I ever find myself in a lull or a slow period, I watch dance films. It could be that one. It could be something like White Christmas even. It could be, which is not my genre. That's why I say even. It's a fabulous movie, but I do not do that kind of dance. So I watch a dance film. I go on YouTube. I look up my favorite dancers and see what they're doing. And it just reminds me, oh, yeah, this is why I do what I do. And just in general, because I pursue other artistic forms as well, one of the things that helps me is my prayer life, actually, because it reminds me that there's great meaning behind what we do as artists. It's not frivolous, contrary to what the government may tell us. And so, that's something that helps remind me why I do what I do.
Beautiful. Well, what was the first thing that in your life, in the moment that you remember when you were young? What was the first moment for like maybe dance that you were like, man, I want to be a dancer? Because I know that moment for me, because I do like to dance on occasion myself.
Yes, you do.
And I remember watching the Nutcracker, the live from 1992 or 94. And it's just so embedded in my brain that I was like, I love to dance.
Yeah. I love that it was the Nutcracker.
And it was the live performance Nutcracker. You can't find it on YouTube. I've tried a million times. I think you'd have to like rent the VHS tape. For those who don't know what those are, look it up. I know, right? But yeah, it's just so ingrained in my head that I was like, man, that it was just so beautiful. The costumes and the dancing and the artistry that was portrayed in that. So is there a moment like that for you?
Well, it's crazy because mine's actually similar. Because I of course grew up attending the ballet because it was in my family's blood, and that's what we did. We went to the symphony or the opera or the ballet pretty regularly. But there was one performance. We went all the way to Chicago to visit a school that my mother helped plant there many years ago. It's called Salt Creek Ballet. It's a fabulous ballet school. And they always bring in world-class artists to do the production parts that the kids can't do. Like, so let's say Nutcracker, it would be the Sugar Plum Fairy and the Cavalier. Well, one year I got to see it, and it was Gillian Murphy, who is now one of the premier ballerinas in the entire world. Wow. She was probably at the very beginning of her career. And I remember watching her, and my jaw just dropped. And I was like, I want to be her.
Yeah.
And she's a lovely person too, which is equally as inspiring. But she was just stunning, and she danced with a male dancer who was equally as profound in his career, and it was just amazing. And it was the Nutcracker.
I think it's just such a classic like dance and performance that really just is like ingrained on you, no matter like what generation, what age. Like everybody knows what that is, you know?
Yeah. It's magical, and it's that classic pink
so
shoes,
magical.
Shoes. Yeah.
I love it. I love all of it. Gosh.
And I think I was 12 by the way, when that happened. I was like 12, 11.
Yeah. I was so young. I was probably like 4 or 5 when I saw that.
I love that.
And it just was imprinted on my head. I was like, and I even went to ballet classes. Like I quit when I was 12. Before I got into point shoes, I was like, this is not for me. But my mom did put me in ballet classes for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I would, like, if I had my way, I would have every little girl at least try it just to learn the poise and the grace, and like, it's okay to do girly things.
I should have had you as a teacher, because my teacher did not motivate me enough to stay in it. I was just like, I'm done.
Oh, that makes me sad, because that's, that is your motivation when you teach, is you want the kids to enjoy it as much as you do.
I think I had gotten into sports by that time, and it just was like too much on the schedule, and my parents were like, you gotta quit.
Oh, that's rough.
The ultimatum. So what are some obstacles that you faced in your creative journey? Like, are there some things that you've had in the past that have just kind of like burned you out? And then are, things that are happening right now? I know COVID-19 is probably happening to everybody, that's stopping everybody's creativity, and we have to kind of like fight it every day. But what about for you?
Well, I touched on it a little earlier with the book. The bipolar has been a big obstacle because it's very hard for me to be consistent, like to do something every day. But if you love something enough, it is possible. It's difficult, but it's possible. So that's obstacle number 1. Number 2, I actually have what's called brachial plexus palsy of the left arm and shoulder, which means I have limited mobility on this side of my upper body. So for dance, of course, any kind of physical limitation is like, I mean, I was told point blank at one point when I was little, they were like, yeah, you have talent, but you're never going to make it. And
Oh,
and that was
wow.
kind of soul sucking because I was like, but I like
Yeah, that's
dancing.
traumatizing.
Yeah, but it looked really bad for me because I hadn't had corrective surgeries yet, and I hadn't fully explored my capacity for movement yet. But as I got older, I worked really hard to work around it and with it and through it. And that was probably honestly bigger than the bipolar because it's a physical, like there's nothing you can do about that other than pray.
And you showed them and you're like, I'm going to be a professional ballerina. Watch me.
Yeah, I like to think of it that way.
No, you are. You're doing it. You have.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I showed all of you.
Thank you. Yeah. So there was that. And then as far as like the COVID-19 times, you know, I'm going to be truthful. It's been very soul sucking because I can't go to the studio. I can't see my fellow dancers. We've seen each other in passing a little bit, but it's really sad. Like it's been really hard. Like I said, when I need motivation, I've been watching dance films. I've been working out on my own, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same. So maybe I'll answer that question once this is over and I come through it.
Exactly. When we all come through it.
Yeah, it's so hard.
I've had to change my routine too. You know, I've started working out in my living room and isolation, like by yourself. And it's just different. It's very different.
Very hard because I'm such a people person and I miss that camaraderie.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of like online communities happening right now, especially you just have to stay connected and you have to like, hey, I'm going to sign in at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 5 o'clock at night and just join in a conversation or even just have like a dance community. You should have that. You should get all of your ballerina friends and you should all like have like a live performance at night or something and just share.
Similarly, we've been trying to Zoom. We are on GroupMe just so we can chat throughout the day, which is wonderful. It doesn't take the place of being in person, but it's helpful. So I am grateful for those things. Like you're right, like that consistency is helpful.
Yeah. So who are some of your biggest influences in life in the creative industry? And it doesn't have to necessarily be dance. So if it's any industry, and dead or alive too.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest influences, and it's gonna sound cheesy, but it's my mom because she was my first ballet teacher. She's the best ballet teacher I've ever had, bar none.
That's so
sweet. She's an incredible human. She's overcome so much adversity in her life to come through it and be as kind and good as she is. So yeah, my mom is the first one. And I will be specific dance-wise, Gillian Murphy, the woman I mentioned earlier who I got to see live, like she's built similar to me. And she's also tall, which is kind of not ideal for ballet, but here she is. She's one of the best in the world. And I'm like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Yes, I love that.
And like for visual art of any kind, I actually draw from a lot of Memphis artists that I like. Or not even just Memphis artists, but artists I've seen in Memphis, like their work displayed locally. There are some landscape painters because I'm not good at landscape painting. I draw people better or paint people better. So when I see those, I'm like, oh, maybe I can try.
Yeah.
So I would say the visual artists I've been privileged to see their shows in Memphis, like I'm trying to think who I can name. Michael Patrick Maness is a local artist who's done a lot of ballet dancers in his paintings, and they're just quirky and bright and vibrant and fun. They're like all the colors I love he uses.
Yeah.
And he's also a friend of mine, which is cool. And then there's a man whose work I saw at J. Atkin Gallery named John Torina, I believe. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly, but he does the most beautiful landscapes. They're kind of impressionistic, and I just adore his work. But yeah, my biggest influences artistically are those, I would say. Yeah.
Is there somebody like through the past history or something? Like I know I'm a huge fan of Piet Mondrian, the painter.
Oh, yes.
I'm a very geometrical, simplistic, futurism kind of artist. Is there anybody through the past that you could like pinpoint that they have really influenced my stylistic choices?
Oh yeah. I love cubism too, by the way. That's one of my favorite things. I would say, well, I'm going to talk about fashion for a second.
Please. I love
Yeah,
fashion.
I know, it's the best. It's such a wonderful way of self-expression and just to bring vibrancy to life. I love all things Dior, especially his, the vintage things.
Oh, yes.
The vintage things are just inspired. I mean, everything now, I mean, I would not cry if I had something modern by Dior.
Yes.
But like, especially some of the vintage, like little nipped in at the waist, flowing dresses and stuff.
I actually
like
have
that.
a vintage outfit. I found it. So do you remember the vintage shop that was in Midtown, but it's closed? She had this like 3-story level house. It was this
Yes!
I forget what it was
we
called.
Go there once?
Yes, but it's long closed since then.
Hoot and Louise, maybe?
No,
was it that one?
It was owned by a little lady. She had like it was a floor to ceiling vintage clothes. And I found a vintage 1940s Dior sports outfit, 2-piece. Mm-hmm.
No, you did not.
Yes, I've only worn a couple of. I think you've seen it. It's the one that kind of looks like a little bit like Wednesday Addams. It's that little black top and that pinstripe skirt.
Yes. Didn't you do a photo shoot in that? Or no?
No, but I did do it. I wore it on Halloween twice.
Okay. Well, yeah.
But I haven't pulled it out of the closet in a while because I feel like I'm gonna like ruin it.
I know what you mean.
I got close to ruining it when I went to a party with it on Halloween. I was like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah. That's so cool though. Yeah, I love vintage so much. The vintage aesthetic, whether it's like, the 1920s and 30s, what's that era called? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Oh my gosh, I just blanked too. What is what?
Well, it will occur to me, but the 20s and 30s,
the Roaring 20s, yeah,
Roaring 20s, and then in the 30s that they had a similar Art Deco. That's what I'm thinking. Art Deco style. I love Art Deco. I love like the World War II era styles, all of that. Everything from 20s to the 40s is just spectacular to me.
I kind of include the 50s. I'm very similar too. I like the big victory rolls that roll into late 40s into the 50s. Yep.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Oh, I could daydream about it all day long, every day. So tell me a little bit about like what would your ultimate project or would be with anyone and everyone, unlimited budget? Like what would you be your ultimate like dream goal project?
Unlimited budget. I love that. That's every artist's dream, right?
I know. I have to ask the question, I have to.
Oh, of course. That's a good question. For me, I would love to see, and there may have been something done like this, so forgive me if I'm repeating history, but for my company personally, I would love to see Tennessee Ballet Theater collaborate with an up-and-coming fashion designer to create a dance show based around fashion, because we do site-specific historically based work. So what that means is we'll do, like, let's say we pick a famous landmark, we'll design dances around the history of the landmark. Okay. So similarly, if we could find an up-and-coming artist with like the most extravagant wardrobe you've ever seen, we'd have to figure out how to dance in it. But if that were possible and we had enough money and it could be designed around us and we design around them, that would be amazing. And do it somewhere. Would you have
it in a specific city?
Yes.
Where?
New York, of course. New York City.
Oh, I love it.
I'd want to do it at the Met or something, like, or do it, or maybe even open air somewhere really beautiful in Central Park. I don't know, maybe a nice juxtaposition of nature and fashion. But of course, but again, if it's my dream world, the weather would be perfect. So.
Of course. You control the weather too.
Okay, outdoors.
I love it. I would absolutely get a ticket and come to that show for sure.
Well, thank you. It's sold. Done.
Done. I'm there. So what is some advice that you've been given throughout your career up until this point? Like some of the best advice that you've ever been given?
I mean, I've had so many wonderful mentors, but if I had to boil it down to one thing, it's something my mom always says, and she says, this too shall pass. And that applies to literally everything, whether you just bombed on stage or whether it was absolutely incredible. It will keep you optimistic and humble at the same time. because like in the critics world, like you're only as good as your last performance. Well, what if it sucked? Do better next time, you know?
Yep.
So I love that. She always said, this too shall pass. And
this too shall pass.
I think it's very appropriate for most scenarios.
Yeah. Well, what is one thing that you would give advice for? Like somebody who's up and coming in the dance world or who wants to be a writer and artist, what advice would you give them?
I would say, and this is something I tell my students, my ballet students, is when you think you're working hard enough, double it.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's always 10 more little ballerinas coming up who can do what you can do. So you need to do it better. And it sounds so terrible and cutthroat, but it kind of is.
Yeah. Well, you just have to put the effort in, and you have to have practice and discipline, and, you know, and you just want someone to be the best that they can be.
Exactly. And the thing is in this day and age, it's so easy to get distracted and to do 10 different things every week. But my philosophy is more, you know, pick that activity you love, one or two, and excel at them rather than being mediocre at like 30 different things.
Exactly.
I think that's a proper mindset for someone to succeed in my field.
Narrowing your focus for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for chatting with me. It was lovely to catch up, and I cannot wait to see all 3 generations of ballerinas. I'm going to need all 3 photos so that we can show the world, because this is a new thing I did not know about you, and I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So, and thank you so much. And definitely, I know you have a social media and a website or anything. Just let everybody know what your social media is.
Yes. So on Facebook, I'm Camilla Curran, or Cammy in parentheses if you want to find me that way. On Instagram, I'm the Camilla Dell, and it's spelled just like it sounds, only there's only one L in Dell. And if you want to order my book, it's on Amazon.com, but you have to type in the full title with my name to find it.
Okay.
Because it's poetry. So it's Swings by Camilla Dell. And that'll pop right up on your Amazon search. And I think that's everything I wanted to include. I have a website, but the title's kind of long. But I think I can send you a link or something.
Yeah, we can have all the links. Every link that you just said will be in the bio, so they can follow you, like you, heart you, look at your performances. Thank you again so much for being on this series. If you want to know more about this video series, be sure to follow YouTube, The Design Therapy. I'm also on Instagram at The Design Therapy. And my website is thedesigntherapy.co, not .com.co. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Cassie. I had so much fun.
Bye.
Bye.